I see Ray Lopez is here. Aunt Cindy Skinks is here. Great to see you here. Hopefully you can hear me. Can you hear me? Please give me a sign that you can hear what I'm saying to you. How's it sounding? Can you hear me? Testing, testing. How are we doing? Theropod Hunter Halieus. I'm not sure how to say it, but you're here. I'm hoping the yes means that you can hear me. I'm audible. Okay, good. Do you hear what I hear? All right. So mealybugs can be pests. If I had mealybugs on my plants, I wouldn't want them there. Definitely. Laura Taylor's here as well. Blake Boone, Theropod Hunter, Young Lad. Item 13, Wendy Hickson, Wanda White. Great. Destruction Warehouse is here. Joseph Tevere is here. Great. So what I wanted to show you, this is an enclosure setup, as maybe you saw at the beginning, from Pedro's Pods. So hopefully Pedro sees this. Pedro's Pods has got a shop and sent me this enclosure kit. And so this is basically everything in here comes from Pedro. I think some of the leaf litter in here is mine. Yes. And some of the wood I just added today from stuff that BioLife sent me. But other than that, the substrate, the cork bark, the magnolia, the moss, all that stuff is from Pedro's Pods, as well as the enclosure with these lovely vents. And I love these vents because they are a very fine mesh on there. And it's a metal vent mesh, but it's a very fine one. I like that. Keep a lot of pests out. All right. So I wanted to show you what's in here. This is from Pedro's Pods, and if you saw my Instagram, I guess that was a bit of a spoiler, sorry. But here we go. Well, there are a lot of springtails on there. There's a magic potion. But I saw some babies today. And I wanted to see, maybe we could see some babies together in here. That would be cool, huh? See if we can see. Magic potions reproduce fairly slowly. Oh, I see a baby. Do you see it? There is one right there. Excuse me. It'll be a little bit hard to focus on it, but I'll put it closer to the center of the screen. And it's starting to move. Hopefully you can see it. There it goes. It was disenconglobating. Now it's starting to move. So I saw several babies in here this morning. I don't want to dig around in the substrate too much and upset them, but they're in here, which is awesome. Magic potions being kind of, in the opinion of many, the pinnacle of Armadillidium vulgare, partly because of their large size and partly because of their consistent increased how can I say this? An increased incidence of yellow markings due to selective breeding for that trait, specifically by Kyle Candeliana brooch crossing. Oh, there's a baby right there in the cork bark. Check it out. So cool. So yep, these are the true magic potions, the American line. The Japanese line would be better called something like Japanese Dalmatian or Japanese Pied. Oh, springtails just caused that little one to conglovate. Did you see that? So anyway, I don't want to disturb them too much, but I'm really excited. The colony is doing really well because obviously they're breeding now. And you can see the springtails are doing well in there. So I'm going to put this back. And there we go. So I'm going to put this back on. And these are pure line magic potions. You can't find them purer than this because the founder, the person who started working with the morph, has never mixed them with anything, and that's who I got it from, Kyle Candelian. So it's pretty fun that that is the case. I'm going to work with some other creatures now. Here, this bin I just was putting together for some Oniscus ocellus, Mardi Gras. That's what we're doing here. So I'm going to start moving them over to this bin and get them going. This is mostly my substrate with some additives. I added some wood chunks from BioLives. I would have used her substrate, but I ran out. I've already used it to put in other enclosures and stuff, so it's too bad. I need to buy some more because I love that stuff, and the isopods obviously do too. So I'm going to put this in. I wanted to address some comments from patrons as well as I started working on this. So let me pull up the comments from patrons here. We had 2 or 3 comments from patrons or questions, so I wanted to make sure I got them all. Let's see. One is from Robert Dean. Robert says, is isopod size affected by container size, specifically for larger Porcellio species? Well, I'm going to put in my 2 cents. This is what I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 of them on this piece. Okay. Here's number 10. You know, the distribution of color on these is amazing. It's a lot better than it is on typical, like, Porcellio caber Dalmatian, which I think is pretty cool that they're so beautiful. So, Robert Dean, I think that is one way to look at it. You could say that isopod size is affected by container size, but I think maybe a way to look at it would be to say that isopod density affects size and container size affects density. And I haven't done extensive research or experimentation on size of isopods of any type, really. But I have a lot of anecdotal observations I can share with you, and that's, that could be somewhat useful, I think. So I will say a few things about that. One is I have seen with some Porcellios, like Porcellio laevis, that if you have a bin where, like I did this in the microvarium experiment, I had one laevis in this bin with all these other isopods, and, well, it wasn't actually laevis, it was a Porcellio milkback, which have, recently been determined not to be actual laevis, but they look a lot like laevis, which is why, of course, they were confused for them for so long. They look a lot like laevis. So anyway, this individual got really big in there, and it was not devoting resources to breeding. I believe it was a male, but it wasn't breeding because there were no other females of its species in there. It was just eating and growing, basically, and it got really big. So I think, and the density in that enclosure was fairly low. The size of the enclosure was quite small, but the density was really, really pretty low, and so it got plenty of food and wasn't competing for those resources and got pretty big. Another observation, I once put a few zebras in with my mourning geckos just to see what would happen in their planted bioactive vivarium, and most of them eventually, I just kind of didn't see them and figured either they had just passed on, maybe they'd been eaten, I'm not sure. But one of them, months and months later, I found it, and it was gigantic. It was absolutely gigantic. The biggest zebra isopod I have ever seen. It was like as big as a large gestuary, and it was wide too. It was very girthy. And I think that was because it was an enclosure, once again, with low density of isopods. It was a large enclosure. And I know it's not Porcellio, and you were asking specifically about Porcellio, but perhaps the information can be generalized a little bit in that it was it was an isopod with low density, low competition, high availability of food, and it grew absolutely gigantic. A lot of times when isopods have low density, they devote their resources more to growing and less to, when they have low density, they devote their resources more to growing and less to reproduction, at first at least. And that can lead to large individuals. So that's the information I have on that topic. It's not exhaustive, but I hope it helps. And I think it's something to keep in mind as you're considering that. Vance, I think we're about done with this one. Should I move to another bin? Let's see. Another one is that Vance Goodwin says, are there any particular types of leaves, bark, or plants that should be avoided for isopods? Well, if there's something you know that's highly toxic, should probably avoid it. There are certain things that isopods can do to handle some toxins. Like there are some pretty potent toxins in walnut leaves, and if an isopod eats a fresh one, could be exposed to a lot of those toxins. And it waits till they're dried and lose some of those toxins. So there's things like that going on. But basically, softwoods, conifers, are not great for isopods, partly because the bark and wood tends to be very resinous and they can get stuck in the resin, and they're also highly aromatic, and those volatile compounds can be bad for them and cause problems for them as well. So I would say avoid softwoods of that sort. That will definitely go a long way. But before I close this up, I need to put a label on it indicating when I switched out the substrate, because I just did that. So okay, sub changed January 10th 24. Okay, and then I need to, since I transferred everything to a new container with a lot of the old substrate, which is a good idea to transfer some of the older substrate for a lot of reasons we talked about, I think, last time. pH, microbiome, moving springtails over, a lot of reasons. Aggregating pheromone, that the isopods, the frass has pheromones in it that help them to feel comfortable. And if you put them in a new container without any of that, they might feel, a little bit stressed until they have some chance to settle in. But if you put some of that substrate over right away, as well as also things like this cork bark that they've been on and things like that, that'll very much facilitate a smooth transition for all of those reasons. So I'm going to close this one up, move it over, and we're going to pull open another isopod bin, because now I would like to collect. I made a big mess, didn't I? Look at that. Made a big mess. I want to collect some orange koi for getting a small colony going in another one of my small bins. So there, we can work on that. And now I can see what people are saying, hopefully. Looks like some people have already answered some questions. Clara picked up some depressums in Tuscany, and they're huge, maybe because of the warmth. Interesting. I don't have any depressum. I have never had depressum. Andrew, any opinions on 3D printing hides for ISOs using PLA? I have no experience printing anything, 3D printing anything, so I don't really know what to tell you there. Sounds like it's a cool idea. I'm looking at these Porcelioscaber orange koi, looking for some individuals to found a small colony with. So I want to find, at least 10, maybe more, of good quality individuals with high expression. I want to take the lower expression individuals out and put them in a mix, basically a morph mix, a lotto mix. Let's focus in on these individuals that I'm finding here, huh? I'm going to lower the camera here so you can get a better look at what I'm finding. Trying to find some really, really nice individuals. And you can tell me what you think of them. I think those two have some pretty good expression. And I'm going to put the individuals for the morph mix in another bin because they're not nearly as colorful, but they can still yield some nice variety in the lotto mix. Like that one. It's a nice individual, but it doesn't have a lot of contrast, and so just going to move it over to a different bin. Same with that one. See, I just made a whole bunch of them hide. That's no fun. Let's see. Trying to dig some out here. Gently, of course. That one could go either way. Not the most contrast I've ever seen. So Theropod Hunter, moo cows is a variety I am very interested in. I don't think you can get those in the US right now. I haven't been able to locate them. Porcelia scaber moo cow, also known apparently as Tunisian pied. These look like the scaber answer to dairy cows. They have very consistently high expression in their pattern. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. They look so much like a little Porcelio scaber dairy cow. It's not even funny. And so moo cow is another name because to show that affinity. There's a decent amount of expression on that one. I like that one, I think. I'm going to put that in. So I would love to get some of those. And it's quite possible to ship Porcelio scaber into the US, but we don't have those here, and I don't know why. I wish we did. So, okay, so Clara in Switzerland, the prenosis with this morph called orange koi. So we have a couple of different ones out here. They're the Oreo crumbles, which have this kind of basically modeling or pied trait. And we also have an orange koi, which looks a little bit different. Oreo crumbles don't have they have not as clear cut separations between them. And apparently they tend to be more consistently high expression, the orange koi. We also have freckled gingers, which are pretty similar to that one has some decent spots on it. It's more on the white side, but I don't mind that. You can still see a lot of orange. It's more similar to the orange Oreo crumbles or the orange creams. It is descended from Oreo crumbles and orange creams is the most popularly used name and the most common form in the hobby. Oh, this is a fantastic one. I really like this one. That might be my favorite so far. Very strong a representation of both orange and white in that specimen. Let's see. Oh, that's a nice one. I'm going to pull that one out. What about this one? I'm thinking maybe this one goes in here. This one could go in here. That one could go in here. What about this little guy here? Probably in there. No, I'll probably move that one. It actually looks pretty good now that I get a good look. When they get in those crevices, it can be tricky. You get in the crevices of the cork bark and you have to shake them loose. I don't want to be too aggressive with it because that's not nice. Okay. That one looks pretty good. I think this one's going over here. And if you see any in this one and you say, hey, you should move that one over, let me know. I think there's at least one of those in there, but if you see one and you say, hey, Russ, you absolutely have to move that one, or vice versa, let me know. I think we're getting to a point where I could start moving them. Let's see what this one looks like. That one's pretty low expression. We'll put that in here. Let me check the chat. Okay. Yeah, I asked Carlos at APHIS about getting isopods shipped from overseas, and as long as they are a species that's acceptable, there are a few differences on how the permit works, but you can get a permit for that. From my understanding, once you get them here, you can't resell them, but you can resell their offspring. So you have to let them reproduce for a certain amount of time before you sell them. But once you got offspring, you can start selling. So I'm finding some nice ones here. Let's see. I think that one looks like it's going to go in there. Going to go in the morph mix. That one too. And anyway, I think getting those Tunisian pied or the moo cows over here would be really nice. You could cross them with oranges and you would instantly get something. Well, not instantly, but you know what I mean. You would quickly get something that would look much like what we wanted to get with we wanted to get the orange dairy cows, and that never happened. So that we could have our cake to some degree that way. Okay, well, I don't want to dig around in here too much. I want to let them, do their thing to some degree. There's one more I'm going to pull out. It looks like a pretty high expression one. And get some leaf litter back in there for them. Spread around a little bit. Get their bark back where they need it. Okay, so, I got a super chat. I've got a super chat from Mr. and Mrs. Morelli. I love it. Always appreciate live streams. Envy your zillion or so springtails and all of your isopod pins. Any new projects you're excited about this year? Let's see. Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it. I think you saw the springtails in the other bin there. The springtails in the magic potion bin really going to town on Pedro's pod substrate that I recently put them in. This bin here has springtails in it, but they're not nearly as going as crazy as they are in that bin. But they do go crazy in some of the bins, which is nice. I notice, of course, the substrate in this other bin needs to be replaced, and that does make a difference. New projects that I am excited for. I'm hoping to breed my Diamond Diadema this year. I'm having fun with the back swimmers now that I have my small back swimmers from Bugs in Cyberspace. They're doing really well. I'm hoping to get those breeding this year. Let's see, just looking around the room and figuring out what's going on. If I can get a hold of some of those moo cow, Porcelia skipper moo cow, that would be fantastic. I'm hoping for that. So those are some of my ideas. Let's see, what else? I'm excited to hopefully sex out my my tarantula. You want to see Grover is right here. This is my one and only tarantula, my Dolichothele diamantinensis, my Brazilian blue beauty. Don't see a lot of blue. You can see a little bit of it through the web. molted recently has emerged and is just hanging out. For about a month or so, Grover here just disappeared into a tunnel. Hardly saw anything at all, and then I started seeing feet at the burrow entrance, and then now Grover's back out and is eating and doing its thing. So I assume that Grover has molted during that time and is now ready to go. I didn't feed Grover right away when I started seeing feet. I waited until Grover had emerged fully, because you don't want to feed tarantula before it's sclerotized. That would be a serious mess. So that's, I don't know if that counts as a project or not. I'll be doing, looks like I'm going to be doing a new class for kids this summer, which should be fun, with, a bug themed class this summer, which I haven't done quite this way before. I've done bug kid classes, but not quite this way. So that's another project, I guess. So yeah, this is Scaber. This is orange koi, Porcelia scaber orange koi. Aunt Sandy, are you ever afraid you will injure the isopod when you pick them up with your fingers? Um, Not really, because I've done it enough. I don't pick up really tiny ones with my finger, but I've developed a pretty good method for getting them out without hurting them, I feel. I would say though that really small ones I won't do it with. And what else was I going to say about it? I have occasionally injured isopods by accident because I don't see them when they're on the cork bark or something. I actually fear that a lot more, because that does occasionally happen. I feel like if I'm picking up on purpose and I know where it is, I don't really have an issue. But if I'm not aware that I'm picking one up and I accidentally, like, shove it against the cork bark when I'm picking the piece of cork bark up or something, then I feel horrible whenever that happens, which, I try to avoid that too, but that's when I get worried. Oh, theropod hunter. I hope you find some of those the geophyllid centipedes. That would be awesome. Okay, so in here, most of these individuals are pretty high contrast. Are there any that you would put in the lotto mix because they're not high enough contrast? I feel like most of these are pretty good. What is your opinion? And thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Morelia. Yeah, the last molt is underground apparently in the enclosure, never came out. And the molt before that, Grover completely destroyed the part of the molt I needed. So let's hope the next one works out. So far, Grover is now, let's see, about 15 months old, and is not showing any signs of, tarsal hooks or anything like that, or palpal bulbs. So I'm not confident. I'm just really hopeful and optimistic that it's going to be a female. And Happy New Year's to everyone, by the way, again. Um, Rod, I hope you do find some. You get a Berlese funnel going and see what you can find. That'd be awesome. Hopefully some pseudoscorpions. Okay, and then here is the one container I need to find. There was at least one that was pretty high contrast that I put in here by mistake. So if you can help me find it. Is that the one right there? That one's actually pretty nice. I'm gonna see if I can pull that one. Yep. Any others that are high contrast enough? I don't think so. I think the rest of those are good for the morph mix. So these are the ones I'm going to use as a breeding stock. So Domingo, since you just came in, these are Porcelio scaber orange koi. One of my favorites of the koi. And there's another one. I like that one. That one has some good contrast to it. So let's see. I'm going to put this bin back. And I'm going to put them in this bin to get them going. So let's move this back a little bit. I set this up earlier. Let's roll back a little bit. Sorry, I've got bits of everything all over the place. But let's do this. Okay. This is what I got them set up in. They won't last long in here in terms of how long I can keep them in here without them overcrowding it. But kind of the idea is they're in a small space, get them really breeding in here. And then once they're 50 or so, I move them over. Oh, my isopods, you found the snow fleas, huh? That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to put the isopods scabers here. Gonna just put them in there like that. And we can watch them crawl off. And now, of course, as they do that, I need to make a label for them. New. Oh, wait, backspace. Okay, so this is Peacecaber Orange Koi. And this one was new substrate January 10th, 24. There we go. And they're all off to find, let's see, Amigo, have you seen The Boy and the Heron? It's a fantastic movie. I haven't seen it yet. I would be interested in seeing it. I heard that's the last Miyazaki movie because he's retiring. So there are several Miyazaki movies that I appreciate. So I don't want to see that one and see how it went. Okay, so these little beauties are settling in. This is something I'm trying in this container too. Going kind of back to an old method of doing things. I'm just having a damp spot with no moss in this particular enclosure. Just a lot of fermented leaf litter and see how that goes on the damp side. For years, when I raised isopods, I did use sphagnum moss. I just had a damp side. And you can do that. I have a couple enclosures in which I do that. It's less expensive. It's a little bit maybe trickier, but it can work. And I just figured I'd try it in these and see how this goes. So these are the leaf kraut, the pickled leaves. And I am experimenting with the method, which is why I haven't disclosed the method yet. For those of you who are, oh, sorry, you didn't see my hairy arm. You don't need to do that. I'm just making sure there aren't any isopods hanging out on this piece of damp paper towel. I definitely don't want to dispose of any. These are looking good. They're going everywhere. Check them out. As soon as I nail down this method and I have ample evidence that it is working well, then I will tell everybody about how I do it. Because it is easier than most methods and doesn't take long. It takes like 3 weeks or so, but it's easier than most of the 3-week methods for fermenting leaves that I am aware of. So I think it's Kiara. Is it Kiara or Sierra? I don't remember. We talked about it before, but I don't remember honestly, so I'm sorry. Are there any new Porcella laevis morphs you know about? My dairy cows keep popping out brown cows and milkbacks, and I'm so confused how people can't make new morphs. Wonder what's going on with that. I wonder if there's some hybridization between different morphs there. Dairy cows and milkbacks can interbreed. Making brown cows, that's interesting. And there's Laura. Welcome. I need to buy some more substrate from you. I just used it all up, the stuff I just bought. So it's awesome. And I can't get enough of it. I just might have to have a standing order every month or something. Figure that out. Let's see. Gestory colonies for $5. How would a beginning enclosure look like? I don't think I can get my hands on sphagnum moss here. Wood moss, okay. Wood moss, you can use it, but you may be introducing pests. Moss is not necessarily a necessity in the enclosure, and isopods will eat the live moss, but you do run the risk of introducing other pests in there with it. They will certainly enjoy eating it, though. So there's sort of a pros and cons game. But basically, you need a damp side and a beginning enclosure. Here, what it would look like. I can show you this one because we just did this one. Something like this. Let me zoom out a bit. You could do your moss here. You could just do some decaying leaf litter here. You've got a few pieces of bark with some concavities in them so that the isopods can hide out in them. And I've got a couple of those here, as you can see. And then you've got leaf litter on top of the substrate, both dry and moist leaf litter. I like to put a shell dish on one side. It's not a necessity, but I use a scallop shell because they're very shallow, and so the isopods are less likely to get trapped in them as they would in a deeper shell. And I keep the dry food, well, basically any food that's not already leaf litter and pieces of rotting wood and so on, I put in here, which helps me keep track of how much they're eating, keeps it from spilling into the substrate and molding. That's that kind of stuff. So, and Elijah's exoquatics. It is true. Dairy cows have recently been demonstrated not to be P-labus. So that is a thing. All right. Okay. I might have to leave early. I'm trying to figure something out, whether or not I do. I noticed there's 50 people in here. There are 38 likes, 50 people in the stream. We can get a few other likes out there. That'd be fantastic. I want to show you a couple other things before I go. I might have to leave early. I'm hoping not to, but we'll see how it goes. So Domingo, I tend to give them more vegetables than fruit, to be honest, as far as fresh food goes. Things like green beans, sweet potatoes, zucchini, that kind of stuff, green peas, more than fruit. I do occasionally give fruit, especially to larger colonies, but it can be a problem to give them too much fruit because it tends to attract bugs and mold more quickly than other things. Okay, so I want to show you what's in here. Is this the right bin? Did I grab the wrong bin? I did. This is my Armadillidium nasatum rust, which is kind of cool because they throw different colors naturally, kind of like a Santa Lucia or a Porcelli laevis California mix. But that's not the bin I meant to grab. I wanted to grab a different one and show you. Ah, here it is. Same container, that's why. Same container, different colony, different species. Okay, now we got 51 people in here and 49 likes. That's so much better. Thank you so much, everyone. It really helps boost the algorithm, helps more people be able to watch the live streams, that kind of stuff. So, a couple things I want to show you. These are my brown cows. Oh, sorry, lost the light. That'll be back in a second here. There we go. Sorry, I didn't realize the timer was set for that early. These are from Kyle Candillion. Got these recently. Kyle developed these from Carmel laevis. So these are true laevis. And they don't look like dairy cows, but they look something like dairy cows. They're like an alternative to dairy cows in that they have some dark color and some light. And I don't know if you saw that little one in there before. There's some little ones running around. This is a new bin, and I'm excited about it. We've got a new, they're breeding also. I got them at the same time I got the magic potions. And I probably need to move them into a new bin soon because once they breed, they go pretty fast. Sorry about that. And sorry, you're now looking at just leaf litter, which is sitting there being a mess. I wanted to show you also these are my Porcelia laevis sonoran desert. You can see that they're reproducing too. There's a young juvenile right there down in the substrate. Here's a couple of mature or mostly mature individuals. Oh, there's a bunch of them down there running around. They're all scattering now, but you can see that they're breeding. The smaller ones in there were born here. And these are extremely resistant to desiccation. So I'm actually, now that they're breeding, I'm going to set them up in a container where it stays, most of it stays dry. There's going to be a moist corner all the time, but there's going to be a lot of ventilation. So it's going to be more similar to their natural environment. So these will be fun to work with. And they're also going to be, part of the reason why I wanted to work with these, maybe even most of the reason, is because people ask for species that are great for arid bioactive. And these are, because they're extremely resistant to desiccation. Doesn't mean they don't need a moist spot somewhere, but they can hang around in the dry parts of the enclosure and just go to the moist spot when they need it. Much more readily than some other isopods that would desiccate very quickly. So pretty cool species to work with. So these are Porcelia laevis sonoran desert. So the hound-ows that I showed you before, those are just descended from Carmel laevis only. Brown cows, I'm not sure exactly, because there's so many different common names out there. I am afraid that I have an issue that I have to depart very soon, but I'm going to show you one more thing before I do, okay? This one more thing I'm going to show you also comes from Kyocandilion. Let's see if we can see a few of these. There they are. This is Porcelia scaber luci, short for leucistic, or leucistic as is more correct. Look at the eyes on these. They have nice dark eyes, nice light bodies and dark eyes. Love that. And these are reproducing as well. I've noticed babies in here. I don't see any at the moment. Maybe there'll be some under this piece. There's a couple of them, but no babies right now. Oh, no babies, just springtails. But they are producing babies. I've seen them in here. So I'm pretty excited to get these going. Porcelia scaber luci, short for leucistic. Oh, there's Charlie. Charlie's in here. Charlie Moorcroft. Awesome. So I am afraid that I have been messaged. I have been summoned. My the transportation system is failing us, and my son needs to be picked up from the bus station, which is quite a distance from our home. So I need to take off. Thank you for joining, everyone. I'm sorry I have to cut it short, but it's been great to have you. Thanks for the super chat, Mr. and Mrs. Amelia. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll catch you next time.